The difference between training and coaching and mentoring is the trainer is teaching things. The coach or mentor, you're teaching yourself. They're asking you the right questions to draw that out of you and get you inspired, and then giving you a bit of gold at the end when you think, wow, I'd never have thought of that.
Welcome to the All in Recruitment podcast by Manatal, where we explore best practices, learnings, and trends with leaders in the recruitment space. If you like our content, please subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify to stay tuned for our weekly episodes. I'm your host, Lydia, and with us today is Mike Walmsley, co-founder of RecruitmentTraining.com. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
My pleasure, Lydia.
So tell us a little bit about what inspired you to start RecruitmentTraining.com, and what is your vision for this company?
Well, I was quite unusual in that I was a big billing recruiter, billed £1 million in my best year, became managing director of a fast growth business, and saw the impact of me personally developing people. It became a big success story in the UK, Australia, New Zealand, and actually in Bangkok also. And so I knew that the material I had was special and it worked. So I spotted a gap in the market and built a recruitment training company that was built around world-class techniques. In regard to my vision for it, I mean, there's so much happening in the world now in terms of AI. It's incredible, so we're at the forefront of that. And we've been building what I call reality recruitment videos, which are truly unique. I'll explain a bit more if you like on that point. But so I'm really building reality videos, which are based around real conversations that recruiters have had with candidates or recruiters have had with clients, reenacted, of course. And then, steering an experienced recruiter to think hard when they watch those videos. Are they making the same mistakes? Are they missing really simple techniques? So my vision is to grow that further and to move more towards what's happened in the HR world. If you think of HR apps now, they're very common. It's a recruitment company might have an app where you can book holidays and claim travel expenses or whatever it may be. But more and more have now cottoned on to the world of a learning management system to manage their complete L&D infrastructure. So my vision is that more and more companies will have a proper tailored L&D infrastructure using an LMS.
So in creating this methodology or this syllabus, if I may say so, it's
sure.
What did you use? How did you build that methodology or that
sure.
that
well,
learning method?
It started some time ago. I mean, when I first started doing this, I filmed 6 DVDs, and believe it or not, we sold one DVD for £699. That's quite a thing, Obviously, DVDs are pretty much obsolete nowadays, but we sold thousands of them. So I realized that, video learning had a big impact, so it started with me as what you might call the single expert, and that catapulted me onto the world stage at all the top recruitment events in the USA, in Canada, and South Africa, Australia, Asia. And I thought, this is really interesting. So And I realized that, if I was running my recruitment company, I might not want just Mike Walmsley in there on video. I might want several other people. So we then extended that, and we now currently have 60 different presenters that my production team has filmed and produced.
So you had a bit of a head start, I would say, right? In coming up with a video and sharing your expertise, and this is on training and upskilling recruiters. How did you keep up with that momentum?
You've got to be a self-learner, really. You've got to be staying ahead of the curve all the time. Take AI, for example. I mean, I'm astonished how, few people know about AI tools. So what I'm doing is I'm on YouTube. I'm on YouTube regularly. And whether you call me sad or you call me ahead of my time, I don't know. you choose that. But I enjoy it. I enjoy learning these new things that give a competitive advantage. And in recruitment now, it's the tip of the iceberg. There's so many recruiters not even thinking of, putting a complex job description into ChatGPT, one that they don't understand, and one that if just a few months ago they would have had to Google or go on YouTube to try and understand it or ask their client. And now you just put, create 6 searching interview questions to assess the capability of this candidate and give me 6 best practice answers that a candidate would give, to those questions, which now means I can ask those questions very, very precisely, impress my clients and so on. So we've built videos, AI for recruiters courses, as you may expect. I find it fun to see an idea and then think, right, I can grab hold of that and use it for my customer base.
How do you find the input from ChatGPT that comes in? The kind of the queries that you have versus the results versus what you've done in the past. I mean, do you see that there's a large gap, or is it very close? It's
the key is the prompt. I mean, there are tools that help you build the best prompt. But, if you were, as a simple example, let's say I want to write, let's say I'm a recruiter and I place full stack developers in Frankfurt, then, I might say, you are an experienced full stack developer recruiter based in Frankfurt and you have 20 years high level experience. Do you understand? So I prompt it and give it the persona of that individual. I then say, read this article about full stack development jobs in Frankfurt and comment upon it through the eyes of an expert full stack developer recruiter, and write it as a post that I can put on LinkedIn in 300 words. So the key is you've got to give it the right instructions, and the prompt is key.
Definitely. So this means that what was once known as the key skills and qualities for a successful recruiter might change totally. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's changing, absolutely. And the soft skills are going to be massively important now. So Boolean search you can create using ChatGPT. The time invested in doing that, why would you then invest that time now when you can do it in seconds? So there's no doubt that the job changes. So the real skill is the soft skills, which ChatGPT cannot really replicate in the same way, certainly not at the moment. The ability to ask the right questions in a sales conversation, the most powerful questions. There is AI you can use to help you with that. For example, I use fireflies.ai, which is a tool that I can integrate into Teams or Zoom, and it gives me an exact transcript of the meeting with the summary points and the actions. It's 90% accurate, by the way. It's pretty good. So, nowadays, a recruitment business owner could use that transcript for training purposes. It's much easier to read a transcript than it is to watch a 30-minute video of one of your staff making mistakes when interviewing a candidate, for example. You can actually see it word for word, which means you can then intervene. So sharpening those soft skills is key. And it's not done that often, to be honest. You'll get a recruiter essentially who's got 5 years experience. In reality, they've got 1 year experience repeated 5 years in a row, and they're doing more or less the same things, and they're getting the same kind of results. And you can uplift people, 3-4 times productivity and revenue just by sharpening a few skills in the way they say things or the way they use a technique.
In terms of the LMS, is there a learning plan? Is there a journey for the recruiter? And how does AI play a role in the LMS that you have?
It will do, absolutely. We're integrating AI. You can put my brain into the LMS. It sounds a bit odd, but it's possible to do that. There are tools you can use that enable that, as you can in a chatbot in your own website. By the way, you can put somebody's brain in there so that it can answer with your voice. But the LMS is a piece of software, of course. And you construct learning pathways. For a recruitment business owner, and I've helped a few of them to exit. So, one grew from £6 million turnover when I was non-exec, and it ended up at 100 million turnover. And I was chairman of the board for a number of years and helping, advise that business to grow. And one of the key things I did advise them on was the development, the internal development. And it helped them to fast track because they were able to hire rookies from scratch and get them billing fast. So with an LMS, you can reduce the time to bill. And there's so many businesses I've met now who they'll put up with underperformance. You'll have a recruiter who is still not generating revenue after 3 months. And for some reason, they're putting up with it. With an LMS, you can manage the exact learning that you need, including the person's live training, recorded Teams meetings, hour videos, YouTube videos, documents, anything in a plan, an organized plan that can be then measured. And you can use our learning accountability tool, which is the absolute key when inducting people into a business. You've got to have learning accountability. If you just run an induction and you say, how did you enjoy it? Yeah, it was great. How do you know what they've learned? And so building an LMS with the right software is critical.
And have there been any success stories out of this LMS or this learning pathways that you've designed? Also?
Yeah, sure. Well, we had one business won the award for best recruitment training in Australia, using the LMS as a key part of the award submission, by the way. But yeah, we've had businesses have had spectacular successes. And, to give you some individual case studies, we had one recruiter went from £300,000 billings per annum to 1.8 million. And he's one of the biggest billers in the world. And believe it or not, it's one technique from the 700 videos that sit in the LMS. And it's called senior candidate tracking. It's very simple, but he wasn't doing it. He wasn't actually asking the right questions when interviewing a candidate that he couldn't place, and finding out through the interview question how often that candidate interviews in their own business. So, for me, I'd say something like, so Jenny, one of the key things that employers look for in people at your level is the ability to build teams. Could you please tell me about the teams you've built over the years and how you went about doing that? And if she tells me that in her current company, where she's still employed, and the previous one, she recruited 20 or 30 times a year, any recruiter that doesn't stay close to that candidate, even if you can't place them, will be a fool, because they're a client. They're a client, or they're a future client. And that was the technique that he latched onto. There's some more information that we don't have time for today to tell you the full story, but spectacular result. He's one of the biggest billers in the world now.
And so on that note, there are some setbacks that come into play that you use and you use the LMS to rectify that to a certain extent. So what are some other common mistakes that recruiters might make during the hiring?
There are many, I'm afraid. There are so many people stuck at the $100,000, $150,000 a year billings when they should be doing 3 times that. But it's not just the recruiters; it's the managers, and the managers. A big weakness there, and we do have a lot of management training in the LMS, recruitment specific, is not having effective one-to-ones, and the one-to-ones are not done in a coaching-led style, and the person feels small after the one-to-one. They don't look forward to it. The manager doesn't enjoy it, and therefore they stop doing it. And they're often measuring the wrong things. Again, I'll give you an example. As a manager, I measure candidate referrals, and yet hardly any businesses I come across measure the number of candidate referrals that their recruiters get every week. Why you wouldn't do that, I don't know. Because you fill jobs through candidate referrals, live jobs, if you're good at it. So there's mistakes on the management side. On the recruiter side, I think it's often lack of sales training. Whether you are a delivery consultant and you're only talking to candidates, if you understand the principles of selling professionally, you don't push, you pull. And that's about asking the right questions. So if I'm interviewing you, I'm going to ask you, so tell me, Lydia, what are the 5 most important things to you in your next career move? Now, once you've told me it's A, B, C, D, and E, if I have a vacancy that's got A, B, C, D, and E, and I describe it to you, you're interested straight away. You're less likely to let me down. And there's a whole host of other reasons why that's powerful. But that's a sales technique, and it's called establishing a need. So I'm finding out what you need before I sell you anything. Then I sell the solution to your need, and therefore you welcome it because it's helping you in your career journey.
Would you consider that part of soft skills or technical skills?
Well, it's technical selling, but it's a soft skill also in terms of how you deliver it.
Consultative.
There's all kinds of different ways to get results. I've seen people use humor. I've used humor from time to time in conversations. I tend to be a bit more conservative when I'm selling. But if someone's got a cheeky sense of humor, I'll have a little bit of fun with them. And I've seen people get away with that. But if that's a manager who uses that style, the staff that work for you want to replicate it, and they can't because they're not you, and therefore you then, they're not built on solid foundations. So you've got to train people how to sell in this job, whether they're doing delivery or not. And if you think, people who say, selling, 95% of salespeople do it badly. They push, they try and sell the wrong things to people. The superstars who make big money, it's huge money, they find out, they uncover the candidate's problems, they uncover the client's problems, and then they give solutions to them, and the customer pays them for that service. Not the candidate, of course, but the customers do. So it's a real skill, and it's sorely lacking, unfortunately.
And you talked about mentorship playing a very big role here, right? And delivery of that mentorship is critical. So what really, going back to that topic, what role does mentorship play in this training process, and what should recruiters look out for in a mentor, and vice versa?
Sure. Well, there's different kinds of mentoring. If you think the pressures on a recruitment manager, they often have to generate revenue themselves. So therefore, they're under pressure and they're not looking after you and, the staff member as effectively as they should do, So one simple fix for that, it's not really mentoring, but it's got some elements of it, is running weekly development sessions. So you're looking for incremental improvements. Mm-hmm. So we've built the reality recruitment videos specifically for those sessions. So we have what you might call traditional training in a classroom with an audience and a presenter and talking through things. But the reality videos, the manager can sit down during the working week and play one of the videos with their team. And then they have to critique it and say how they would have done it better before a better version is then revealed to them. And that goes deep into the brain. So that's a kind of, because you're facilitating that session as a manager, you're kind of mentoring them. But a proper mentor will go deeper than that, and I would have one-to-ones with you, and I would be available for you at certain times. And I wouldn't just be working on sales skills, I'd be working on attitude. Again, this is where an LMS can come into play, because the difficulty of someone like me, if I've got 100 staff, which I did at one point, finding time for everyone is I can't do that. But what I can do in today's world is be recorded, so on a Teams meeting, as we're doing now, if you were my colleague, you could ask me 10 questions about, so Mike, give me some examples of people who've really succeeded in recruitment that surprised you. You might ask me a question like that. I give you my answers to whatever that was in my experience. I'm kind of mentoring you, so to record that and put it in an LMS is gold. The power of an LMS is you can integrate it into the full learning plan and you can measure the results properly. Mentoring is, that's one way to do it. Another way to do it is peer-to-peer learning. So I built and sold the first peer-to-peer learning company for recruitment in the UK. And we grew it to about 110 members. And once a month, we got 12 CEOs of recruitment companies around a boardroom table. And I chaired the meeting. And we did multiple meetings, of course. So they were non-competitors. So you'd have an IT recruitment company, engineering, architectural, whatever it is. And then we'd have a business speaker there. And so peer-to-peer learning is not really mentoring, but it's got elements of it. You're learning from others. Mentoring, you're learning from that single person. So if it's a single person mentoring, then you've got to be a good coach. And that's a skill that a manager needs to learn in order to be able to play that part. So a mentor is not just saying to you, this is what you should do. They're asking you what you want to do, and then how are you planning to get there? And asking questions. And the difference between training and coaching and mentoring is the trainer is teaching things. The coach or mentor, you're teaching yourself. They're asking you the right questions to draw that out of you and get you inspired, and then giving you a bit of gold at the end when you think, wow, I'd never have thought of that. So I think a bit of inspiration as well, a mentor, when somebody can't see the future and, where the job might go, you can open their eyes. Take me, for example, when I, came into recruitment, I had no idea I could become a managing director of an international business. It never crossed my mind. I didn't know that I could end up being an MD of a big company. So once I get there, I think, I can pass that thinking to people, because there'll be other people like me earlier in their careers who thought the way I did. So I used to say to everyone who joined the business on day one, if you're better than me at my job, take my job, and I said, I'm good. and you're going to have a hard task to take it, but take it. I want you to take it. I'll do something else for the business. We'll open a new division. We'll do something else. But the sky's the limit for you. Go for it. So we try so a mentor is inspiring people as well as teaching them things.
So moving on to technology, that's it's the backbone today of any recruitment business, really. And
Sure.
looking into process efficiency, being data driven in its approach in the approach towards metrics. So, what kind of modules do you have? Do you prepare for this, or has it already gone into?
Well, the thing is, there's so many different pieces of software being used by recruitment companies. It'd be impossible to do it, for every single one. So, if you're using a good CRM, you'll be able to put data in it and then get the data out of it, and analyze it. And really, there you're looking at things like effective KPIs, making sure you're measuring the right things and then reviewing them and then doing something with the data. You've also got the sources of information. So where did the candidate come from? Was it an email? Was it a search on LinkedIn and a message? Was it an advert? Was it a referral? Was it a peer reference? Was it some other sourcing technique that was used? So then you can analyze that and invest more money in the appropriate areas. I think AI is changing the landscape, and what we're talking about today, in 3 months' time, there's going to be a new tool. It really is that quick. So I talked about Fireflies, which I use. Probably in a month or two, I'll find something better, maybe that could come along. So it's difficult to stay on top of tech, but you have to, and I would encourage business owners to inspire their staff to go on YouTube, and to start finding things that can add value to the business. Test them. If that's not your thing, then find somebody in the business who's a champion for that, and that they can bring the best ideas into the business.
And speaking of training and upskilling and staying on top of things, how can you ensure that a training program or a module, for instance, promotes DE&I, diversity, within the recruitment industry or in the practice itself?
Sure. Well, you've got to start at the top. So you've got to make sure the person is educated to that. And I think with diversity generally, it's educational. So there's unconscious bias, for example, and a lot of people don't realize this. So there's an education process to it. So I would advise, once again, get it in the LMS early. Nobody wants a racist in their business, for example. Yeah. So if you've got a module that could be from YouTube, someone you find who's a guru, put it in the LMS and use learning accountability to assess the person's alignment to the thinking of that material. So everybody who joins a business, I think, now needs to be educated along those lines, really, and it's got to start from the top.
And the buy-in as well. We're talking about the education and the persuading and the convincing, and ultimately the practice of having more awareness around unconscious bias and issues concerning D&I and improving that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And, reinforcing it. If you just do it once, it gets forgotten about. It's like having a referral fee, for bringing someone internally into the company. It gets talked about on induction, never mentioned again, and therefore no one does it. So it's similar. You could train somebody in it, but you need a champion. You need somebody in the business who lives and breathes it, who reminds people. Get it in the mission statement if it's that important for you. Put it on the wall, talk about it, celebrate diversity, celebrate successes, get testimonials from, people you've placed who fall into those categories. So I think some of that leadership element, really.
Going back to HR technology, as you said, there's a tool coming out every other week, if you ask me. So, we're seeing more and more of that, and HR technology is definitely a must, right? So what kind of impact do you think these technologies and tools, such as an ATS, like ours in Manatal, will have on recruitment alongside AI?
Sure. They're enablers, aren't they? They make the job easier. And, there's so many things that have come along in my career in recruitment. When LinkedIn first came along, for example, God, employers will be able to find the candidates themselves. But the recruitment industry is bigger than ever now, so these are enablers. The real skill is working out how to use them to create efficiencies. And one client I introduced ChatGPT to in Australia, he's got 70 staff. And a few weeks later, I said, how are you getting on? He said, I've realized what a monster it is. He said, it's the biggest training initiative I've ever had in my business. And I thought, good on you. He's actually grabbed hold of it. And he's driving it into the business because he can see the efficiencies. Others say, have you used ChatGPT? Oh, yeah, I read about it. I saw it on the news somewhere. And they've not made any effort to test it out, to check it out. So I think some businesses will have tremendous gains from it. I'll give you two examples. A recruiter in the UK, she got ChatGPT to write an advert from a job spec. She said it's the best response she's ever had to an advert on LinkedIn. ChatGPT wrote it entirely. Okay, that's one. Another one is writing blogs writing LinkedIn articles where you get more likes and so on. So these are things that are not difficult. So I see it as very positive. There will be some people, no longer needed in jobs. It's already happening, but that's why I said the soft skills are key. And there's a big opportunity there for someone who embraces not just AI, but also the soft skills.
It's interesting how you talked about the spectrum, right? There are those who have immediately adopted it and seen the massive potential of AI and ChatGPT, and then there are those who are a little bit more reluctant to even test it out because there's maybe some kind of apprehension. So, in terms of is there a correlation between the size of the company or the scope of a business in relation to adoption of technology?
I don't know for sure because I'm not privy to all that, inside information, but I think it's just the person's curiosity. Isn't it a great thing in life to be curious? If you think when you were a child and, you see a flower and an insect lands on it and you want to have a look, I think we all need a bit of that as grown-ups, and I think take a bit of time to check things out. I mean, I found another tool yesterday earlier this week called browse.ai. And it can monitor your competitors' websites and send you real-time information. It can monitor LinkedIn and send you information as things change and update. And we haven't started using it yet, by the way, so I can't endorse it. But it's just, when I saw that, I thought, wow, because as an MD, I used to get periodic reports on my competitors. Somebody had to go and do that. Now I can get a report every 5 seconds if I want from my bot, which just sends it to me. Of course, I won't do that. I'll time it so it sends me once a week or something. So, yeah, I think it's curiosity really, and you need somebody in a business who's curious.
Thank you so much. You've given us a lot of insight into a whole range of training, or how you should be thinking about training, or how you should be thinking about upskilling yourself as a recruiter, and that's great. But what advice would you give new recruiters starting out today? I think you've covered this a little bit, but how can they continue to develop their skills and advance in their careers, especially right now?
I think I can give lots of advice, but if I was being succinct, I'd say you've never been trained. You've not been trained by Mike Walmsley. You've not been trained by anyone. You've never been trained. This is a journey to mastery. And the reason I'm saying that, people often, after a year, I don't need to learn that I've been trained. I've already been trained. No, if I try and overcome an objection, let's take I'm too busy to meet you. If a prospect client says, can I stop you there, Mark? I'm really too busy to meet at the moment. I close them at least 7 times out of 10 in my diary before the phone call ends. And yet I've done lots of research on this at events. 1 in 100 are saying they close 7 times out of 10. Most people are saying, okay, Mr. Client, thank you. When should I call you back? And they call back in 2 months' time. And the client says, I'm too busy. And they call back in 2 months' time. So, it's, you've never been trained. It's a journey to mastery. If your success rate in that single objection is 1 out of 10, get it to 2 out of 10, and 3 and 4 and 5. So you can go beyond me. If you can, let me know the technique and I'll learn it off you. But, I'm around about 7 or 8 times out of 10 in my diary, metronomically, whenever I hear I'm too busy to meet you. not on the second call, on the same call. And that's important, So I'd say that'll be one bit of key advice. Keep learning, keep developing, keep improving. Listen to your calls. Use a tool like Fireflies. Record your meeting and review it afterwards and look for improvements.
Thank you very much, Mike. It's been great to have you on the show, and it's been interesting to find out about the different ways in which you can devise a learning journey for yourself using YouTube videos and using an LMS. So if there's anyone from the audience who'd like to connect with you, where can they find you? What's your...
Just find me on LinkedIn. My moniker is the $250 million man. Sadly, I don't have $250 million. People do sometimes think I do, but I've got testimonials to a total of $250 million for monies that my business has helped recruitment companies to generate. So if you look out for me on there, and I'll happily connect.
And we have been in conversation with Mike Walmsley, co-founder of RecruitmentTraining.com. Thank you for joining us this week. Remember to subscribe to our channels to stay tuned for more insights on All in Recruitment.